Sounds good. Luke, wonderful to meet you, sir. There's so much going on, so many titles, so many things happening. So it's great to catch up. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
You got it. Thank you so much, Joe.
Yes, sir. So 5 years ago, this pandemic was raging. It was changing so many things for all of us. How did you ultimately survive the pandemic of 2020, and how has that reverberated into your life in 2025 and what you're doing now?
Sure. It's interesting. Obviously, the pandemic, and just so you know, I'm very happy to be on the show and honored to be a guest. I just want to get that out there. But
Yes, sir.
obviously, with the pandemic, it's curious because it hit us out of nowhere, right? And it was like we were blindsided by a left hook we didn't see. But I was able to survive and thrive because the thing about the pandemic is that Um, obviously, I'm sort of an introvert and sort of a homebody, so it wasn't a huge shift for me, so to speak. I lost my job actually. I was funny because I was working at a travel firm that handled visas for people who wanted to go overseas, and so obviously that dried up. But I wasn't able to get unemployment insurance, but it wasn't a big deal. I had savings to fall back on. I was able to get the unemployment insurance retroactively a couple of months down the line. So I sort of made out okay. I did lose a family member, an aunt, and my father almost died, but he's still with us, thank God. And so I made it out okay, the pandemic. But during that pandemic, I actually came up with the concept of starting my own podcast called the Deep Voice Man Show.
Yeah.
And so I think I believe I started that around January of 2021. And so I started interviewing people, and it's a great way to network when you podcast. You get to meet a lot of great people, and I believe that's right around the time I started writing books. So, the pandemic for me wasn't too much of a big like negative experience, but it
Yeah.
was okay.
Well, it sounds like a lot of things happened during that time. So I want to get into your titles and what you're doing exactly now. I'm going to put you in
Sure.
front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's career day, and the kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your answer?
Yes. Sure. So what I do for a living is I coach people on how to exit the rat race through three key things: virtual events, leveraging influencers, and writing, developing your craft when it comes to writing. And so I talk a lot about this in my book, the life lessons for the deep voice man. It's available on Amazon.
Yeah.
And essentially, what I tell people is, I talk about the importance of email marketing, having an email list. Also, podcasting is great, as I mentioned before, to build your direct and indirect network. And obviously, guesting on other people's shows is a great way to leverage influencers. So I talk a lot about that in the book. Obviously, I want to continue to write more books and develop my skill of writing and whatnot. And I in my emails and in my content, I talk a lot about personal development as well when it comes to the three P's, which are the keys to success and other things of that nature, so people can develop themselves personally, professionally, just not only just financially. I help folks holistically.
So what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream job?
It's funny. When I was a kid, I actually I had a whole bunch of different dream jobs. I think at one time I told someone I wanted to be a police officer because I thought that was pretty cool, and they jokingly said, I can't imagine you with a gun," and they were probably right. So they so then later on I said I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to. It's just when you're a kid, you answer that question with a whole bunch of cool things you think are cool and whatnot. I mean, what do you know when you're a kid, right? But obviously, as I got older, it kind of kept changing. I thought about being a teacher, And then I thought about maybe being a lawyer. And then I switched my major like a few times in college because I couldn't make up my mind and whatever. But I ended up working in sales for a while. I was okay with it, but I absolutely hated it. Sales tends to attract a lot of the worst type of people. So I moved away from sales into customer service. But I realized that I wanted to get away from the whole traditional kind of 9 to 5, 40, 50 hours a week kind of thing with the long commute. So I was always looking for a way out. I was always looking for some way to make money that wasn't traditional. In fact, I had been looking and searching ever since I was in college. I tried and failed at a whole bunch of stuff. I actually initially I joined an MLM, think and annoyed the hell out of everybody I knew. So that is it the recommended route that I tell folks. Uh, but it took me a while to figure it out. I stumbled a lot, but obviously I stuck with it with that grit and that perseverance, and I sort of figured out what you have to do, and that's what I teach folks.
Well, you're obviously highly driven and diversified in your career. Take me back to your beginnings and what were the foundational building blocks, the elements, the seeds, so to speak, that were planted that have been harvested into who you've evolved to?
Sure, it's interesting. So obviously, I was born and raised in the United States. My parents actually immigrated to this country from Haiti. I learned a lot about hard work from them and from their work ethic. And so obviously they planted a lot of seeds. They were also very strict parents, and so I'm very good at following the rules, so to speak. And so, but they weren't perfect, but I love them a whole lot. And I actually went to Catholic school from first grade all the way to college. And those type of schools, they thought were very high quality, higher quality than public schools. So I got a very good education. Also, then went to business school, got my MBA from Baruch College, and learned a great deal there. I majored in human resources management. And so I guess, a lot of the seeds were planted from my parents, from educators, and whatnot. And obviously, I learned a lot in those environments. And so they kind of shaped who I am today. And obviously, I'm still not fully formed yet. I'm still developing. I'm still a work in progress. There's still a whole lot more I have to learn, and so in terms of what I've learned throughout my life, the life lessons and what I've learned from others from reading their books or what they've told me, I've put that um, I put all that into my writing so I can share it with my audience. And it's curious because for me it's been an amazing journey. I consider myself a student. I'm sort of kind of like a nerd, so to speak. So I got the nerd treatment when I was in school, and it's okay. Well, I consider myself a perpetual pupil. And so I'm constantly reading, constantly consuming and devouring knowledge. So that's why I'm very good at sort of taking all that information, taking all that knowledge that I absorb like a sponge and sort of distilling it into bullet points, into concise sort of language for people to easily understand without filler or fluff or anything like that. Which is one of the major reasons why so many people enjoy my writing and my content. So so those that's kind of the general idea of I guess the seeds that have been planted, so to speak.
So, what was your favorite book growing up as a writer? What was your favorite one?
Sure. So it's funny. I had a lot of books that I've read over the years, and particularly growing up. I have a particular love for nonfiction. Nothing wrong with fiction, but obviously tend to like nonfiction. I so many books. I mean, in terms of books growing up, when I was a kid, I definitely liked I would say Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the stuff that's taught in the book I was doing already naturally, so it just kind of confirmed and validated um, what I was already doing, which I was happy about to learn. And then, obviously, this is a book that stood the test of time. It's been around since I believe the 1930s, which is amazing and still credible and relevant today. It had lots of advice and information that's very actionable, very applicable to people's everyday lives. So totally love that book. I also did like Think and Grow Rich. That was another book. Obviously, so many personal development books you'd be surprised are just based on are just based on the classics, so to speak. They're just a re-rendition kind of thing in a just a different wrapping, different package. But obviously when it comes to learning things, sometimes that repetition is very important. So nothing wrong with that, so to speak. So I would say those two books were very, very, very extremely key. If I were to give a person one book, it actually wouldn't be either of those. I would give the one book recommendation if it was just one book, it would be Jack Canfield's Success Principles. I think the third edition just came out recently. So he keeps updating it. So that book was a big fat book with a whole bunch of lessons. And that is, if someone were to start, I would say they should start there.
So, who's been a hero for you? Who's been that inspirational force for you to find your voice and what you want to do with your life?
It's interesting. I have a lot of role models, a lot of people that I like. Um, in terms of inspiration, I would say if I were to pick one person, perhaps it would perhaps be Tony Robbins. Uh, love Tony Robbins. His books have been great and amazing. So I think he sets the standard pretty high. He's the gold standard in terms of personal development and helping folks professionally and personally. So I would say he's would be a role model, and he also had humble beginnings. And he wasn't born rich, whatnot, and look where he is now. So I definitely would go with him.
So, if you could get a dream guest on your show, on your podcast, one person alive on the planet right now that you would sit down with, talk to, figure out some things, who would that be?
Sure. So I love this question. And if I had to pick one, I suppose, there's so many different people that I look up to, like Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, who's one of the co-authors of Chicken Soup, and then he wrote Success Principles. Man, I guess I would probably go. Uh, I'd probably go with Tony Robbins. Let's so much to learn from him. He's a teacher, he's a coach, he's a public speaker, an influencer. So I would go with him. Yes.
So, let me ask you this. What is the motivation for you every day to get up to do all of this work that you're doing, to help people, to get your words out there, and I guess what's the overarching philosophy of taking care of your soul and doing work? How does that work for you? Do you find a balance? How does all that come together?
Sure. So, I've always been a teacher. I love teaching because for me, teaching, when you teach someone, you get to learn twice, which is what I love. And people always said I should be a teacher, but being a school teacher never appealed to me for a variety of reasons. I always heard so many horror stories about teaching in public schools, and so, I find that teaching doesn't have to be in the traditional world. You could still enjoy teaching, but it could be as a coach, it can be as a writer, as an influencer. So I would say, what drives me, so to speak, is a few different things. I'm driven by mastery. I love the idea of improving and getting better and better and honing down. And so when I teach others, I get to learn the material in a deeper, more profound way, and as well as helping others. I'm also motivated by, living life on my terms and having freedom, being independent in that sense. I can have that time freedom and whatnot. So that is something that has motivated me. And so I would say that, and also making people proud, particularly making my parents proud, something that kind of drives me, so to speak. And so I would say those are pretty much, I would say those are my major motivational factors. Those are my whys, so to speak.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you lead, the things that have happened that evolved into who you are. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
Sure. I love this question, actually. There's so much advice I would give the younger version of me. Part of the reason why I write is because I want to give advice and wisdom that I wish I had received when I was younger. So definitely love this question. I would say that I would tell him, look, you have to focus on developing personal development. So I would give him that younger version of me some personal development advice. One of the key things I would tell him is that you have to view your life as a movie. You're the star of your own movie, right? And imagine there's an audience that's always watching you. Imagine your ancestors and loved ones you've lost are on high, watching down, rooting for you, and you want to make them proud. I would tell the younger version of me that you should accept criticism and take it as feedback. Everyone loves compliments, but you also have to love critiques. So try to get better and better. Obviously you have strengths, but you got to work on your weaknesses. Every time you make a mistake, after every situation, you have to learn from it. So you have to kind of craft that after action report. I always tell people that, so and then figure out what went right, what went wrong, and then correct going forward. I would tell the younger version of me to, obviously increase, obviously to, be more proactive in life, be more confident, be more assertive, go after what you want in life, be more aggressive, and be more social. Try to build that solid, strong network, so to speak. And I would also tell the younger version of me the key advice that he would need, so wouldn't have to go through the path of failure that I went through to find out what worked in terms of business. So I'd give him proper business advice. I would tell him what to stay away from, so he wouldn't have to, waste time and money. And so you can just give him that kind of shortcut, so to speak. And yeah, I would also give him advice on personalities, key tips on how to avoid toxic people. So you don't have to, be victimized by any, horrible people out there, or be backstabbed or whatnot. Just give them the chief warning signs to look out for. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, I'd probably give them my book
Yeah.
if I could. And that just giving him that book would probably set him straight. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Of everything that you've done and accomplished, and more importantly, evolved into at this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say that what I'm proudest of is the proudest thing I've accomplished is I would say being able to achieve time freedom and to escape the rat race, so to speak, would be probably my proudest achievement. And having freedom, being able to leverage the internet. I always tell people the internet's a great equalizer, so to speak, and so I would go as far as to say it's that not being a wage slave, but being able to free myself from the 9 to 5 grind, and be able to have the time freedom to travel the world and live life on my terms. That would be definitely my greatest accomplishment. I would go with that.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, everyone that reads your book, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Sure. So I perceive myself as someone, I would say that I am I guess you could say that I am if I wanted to make fun of myself, I would say I'm a nerd trying to be cool, so to speak. So I so but I mean that in a lighthearted way. Obviously, I would view myself as someone who is a constant information gatherer. I would say that I am an acquirer and applier. I'm an acquirer and an applier of knowledge. So I'm always looking to acquire and apply knowledge continuously in order to live a life of personal fulfillment. And so I would say I would view myself as a student, a perpetual pupil, so to speak.
So let me ask you this. If you were to walk into a room of everybody that's known you in a business sense, everybody that's gotten your book, and you could walk up to to a podium and tell them one fun story about you, the first concert, you know, jumping out of an airplane, just something that maybe would humanize you a little bit to that group of people, what would you tell that room of people? A fun story.
Sure, fun story. Love this question. Huh, fun story. So, it's interesting. Hmm, to humanize me. I I would say it was is when I worked in sales, right? And um I would work in sales, and it was interesting because I realized for a while after time I wasn't good at it, right, in terms of cold calling. But it took me a while to figure that out. So I once worked at a commodities firm down in Wall Street, and I was there, and the whole place was a mess. It was like there was rats everywhere. It was disgusting. And then I would be on the phone with folks, and they gave us these leads to call. So I'd call these leads, and for some reason on the phone I just sounded horrible. And then the other guys would just make fun of me for it, and they were like, "Well, you don't really sound confident. You sound like a robot. You sound, this, that, and the other thing." And so, I would try to jazz it up, but it wasn't getting any better. I eventually left, and the place was like one of the worst places you could work at. There was constant dishonesty, theft, and whatnot, and it was like, oh my goodness. And so it turns out. That part of the reason why I wasn't sounding effective is because I wasn't really confident in what they were selling and what they were offering. So it kind of was subconsciously, I was sort of sabotaging myself, and I eventually had to leave. And I had left my old job at the Metropolitan Opera to work there, and gladly they were able to take me back after a while. I mean, after I was done with that uh, horrible job that I had at Wall Street. It was just the whole place was just a mess, and but I realized a lot of things from that. It was one of the signs that being a cold caller and selling over the phone probably wasn't the right fit for me. I can laugh about it now, but uh, so some of the characters there were just hilarious. But it was just a real fun story. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So let me ask you this. If anyone wants to get your book, they want to tune into your podcast, they want to reach out, they have any questions, any of the other good business going on in your world, where's the best place to go?
Sure. So the best place for them to go is they can go to my website. It's called clockfreedom.com. So again, it's clockfreedom.com. It's just put those two words together. They could obviously join my email list. Now, when they go to that website and they sign up, they actually would get a free audiobook of my book, The Life Lessons from the Deep Voice Man. Or if they prefer an ebook, like it's like a PDF, if they want that, they can get that as well. It depends. So I'm offering that. As far as the audiobook goes, I only have 24 of them to hand out for free, so it's limited. Just want to make that clear, so they can go to Clock Freedom. Now, my podcast is called The Deep Voice Man Show. It's available on Spotify, Google, Apple, whatnot. They could go check it out there. So I mean, those would be I would say if if they want to check out more about me, they can go to those two places.
Okay, excellent. This has been wonderful. Luke, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on the show, Joe. Obviously, I would love to have you as a guest on my show
Yeah.
if you have time, and I would love to come back if it's possible. And thank you again for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. No. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.